Victoria Chen adjusted her reading glasses as she reviewed the morning schedule on her tablet. The 42nd floor of Harrison Innovations buzzed with the energy of a company worth billions. But Victoria moved through it like a ghost. At 28, she had perfected the art of being essential, yet invisible. Her desk sat outside the corner office where James Harrison, the youngest tech billionaire in San Francisco, made decisions that changed millions of lives. Victoria had worked for Harrison Innovations for 3 years. She started as a junior assistant and climbed her way up through pure determination and flawless work. Every morning, she arrived an hour early to organize James's schedule, anticipate problems, and ensure his day ran smoothly. She knew his coffee order by heart: black coffee, no sugar, extra hot. She remembered his mother's birthday before he did. She could read his moods from the way he walked down the hallway, but James Harrison barely knew her name. Victoria lived in a small apartment in Oakland, taking the train every morning into the gleaming financial district. Her studio was tiny but clean, filled with books she read during lonely evenings. She had no boyfriend, few friends, and a bank account that allowed her to live comfortably, but not lavishly. Her parents had immigrated from Taiwan when she was 5, working multiple jobs to give her opportunities they never had. She honored their sacrifice by working harder than anyone else. The storm before the calm that Tuesday morning felt different. Victoria noticed it in the way James paced in his office, running his hands through his dark hair more often than usual. She could see him through the glass walls, speaking rapidly into his phone with an expression she rarely saw, frustration mixed with worry. Harrison Innovations was about to launch their newest product, a revolutionary AI assistant that could change how people interacted with technology. But tech blogs were buzzing with different news. Rumors about James's personal life had started spreading through Silicon Valley like wildfire. Natasha Blake, CEO of rival company Blake Technologies, had been making subtle comments at industry events. She suggested that James was too focused on machines to understand human connection. She questioned whether someone who had never maintained a serious relationship could create such technology that truly served people's emotional needs. The comments were clever and cutting, designed to plant seeds of doubt about both James as a leader and his company's upcoming product. Victoria watched James end another tense phone call. She had fielded dozens of calls from reporters that morning, deflecting questions about his personal life with polite professionalism. But she could see the toll it was taking. James Harrison could negotiate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But personal attacks clearly unsettled him. An unexpected proposal around noon, James's office door opened. Victoria looked up from her computer to find him standing there, his usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. His tie was loosened and his shirt sleeves were rolled up. "Victoria," he said, his voice carrying an unusual hesitation. "Could you come into my office for a moment?" She grabbed her notepad and followed him inside. The corner office offered a stunning view of San Francisco Bay, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made the room feel like it was floating above the city. James's desk was perfectly organized, just the way Victoria kept it. With important documents arranged in neat stacks, James didn't sit behind his desk as usual. Instead, he walked to the window, staring out at the water. Victoria stood quietly, waiting for instructions about scheduling or travel arrangements. "I need to ask you something unusual," James said without turning around. "Something that goes beyond your job description." Victoria's heart skipped a beat. Was she being fired? Had she made some mistakes she didn't realize? "There's a charity gala this Saturday night at the Museum of Modern Art," James continued. "It's one of the biggest social events of the year. Everyone in tech will be there, including Natasha Blake and her allies." Victoria knew about the gala. She had helped arrange James's attendance, booked his car service, even researched the charity to prepare talking points. But she still didn't understand why he was telling her this personally. James finally turned to face her. His gray eyes held an intensity she had never seen before. "I need you to attend with me. Not as my assistant, but as my girlfriend." The words hung in the air like a question Victoria couldn't quite comprehend. She blinked several times, certain she had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" she managed to say. James ran his hand through his hair again, a gesture Victoria now recognized as his tell when he was nervous. Natasha Blake is spreading rumors that I'm incapable of forming genuine relationships. She's using my personal life to undermine confidence in our company and our new product launch. If I show up to this gala with someone by my side, someone real and authentic, counters her narrative, Victoria felt her cheeks growing warm. The idea was so unexpected, so outside her realm of experience, that she couldn't immediately process it. "But sir, I'm not," she began, then stopped. What was she trying to say? That she wasn't good enough. That she didn't belong in his world? "You're perfect for this," James said, reading her hesitation. "You're genuine, intelligent, and you already know me better than anyone else in my life. You won't have to pretend to care about me, because you already do. You care about my work, my schedule, my success. That authenticity is exactly what we need." The weight of a decision. Victoria stared at James, trying to understand what he was really asking. The Museum of Modern Art Gala was attended by celebrities, politicians, and business leaders. It would be photographed, covered by society magazines, and dissected by gossip bloggers. She would be stepping into a spotlight that could change her life forever. What exactly would this involve? She asked carefully. James seemed to relax slightly, as if her question indicated she was considering his proposal. "We would arrive together, spend the evening mingling with guests, and leave together. You would be introduced as my girlfriend. We would act like a couple, standing close, maybe dancing, appearing comfortable with each other." The practical part of Victoria's mind immediately started calculating the obstacles. She didn't own a dress suitable for such an event. She had never attended a high society function. She wouldn't know how to talk to millionaires and celebrities, but another part of her mind was curious. For 3 years she had watched James's world from the outside, organizing his life while remaining invisible herself. The idea of stepping into that world, even temporarily, held an unexpected appeal. "I would make sure you have everything you need," James continued. "A dress, transportation, preparation. This wouldn't cost you anything. You would be compensated for your time." Victoria's practical side appreciated his thoroughness. Something else was stirring inside her. Was this an opportunity or a risk she couldn't afford to take? "Can I think about it?" she asked. James nodded. "Of course. I need an answer by tomorrow morning, so we have time to prepare if you agree." Victoria returned to her desk in a daze. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of routine tasks, but her mind kept drifting back to James's proposal. She had spent years being invisible, safe in her predictable routine. Now she was being asked to step into bright lights and pretend to be someone she had never imagined becoming. That evening, in her small apartment, Victoria sat by her window, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. The city sparkled with lights from thousands of windows, each one representing a life, a story, a choice being made. She thought about her parents, who had taken enormous risks to build a better life. She thought about the woman she had become, competent, reliable, but hidden. And she thought about James Harrison, the man she helped every day but barely knew as a person. Tomorrow, she would have to decide whether to stay safe in her invisible world or step into a story that could change everything. As she prepared for bed, Victoria realized that for the first time in years, she was truly excited about what tomorrow might bring. The fake relationship was about to begin. But neither Victoria nor James suspected that sometimes the most beautiful love stories start with the most unlikely pretenses. Victoria woke up before her alarm on Wednesday morning. She had spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, weighing James's proposal from every possible angle. By dawn, her decision was clear. She had lived safely for 28 years, building walls around her heart and hiding behind routines. Maybe it was time to step into the light. She arrived at the office 30 minutes earlier than usual, her stomach churning with nervous energy. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer than normal, and her hands trembled slightly as she organized papers on her desk. When James arrived at 8 sharp, she was ready. "Good morning, Victoria," he said, pausing by her desk. His gray eyes searched her face, looking for clues about her decision. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," she replied, then took a deep breath. "I've thought about your proposal. My answer is yes." Relief flooded James's features, followed by something that looked like genuine gratitude. "Thank you. I know this isn't easy, and I appreciate your trust." Over the next 3 days, Victoria found herself swept into a whirlwind of preparation she had never experienced. James arranged for a personal shopper to meet her at an upscale boutique in Union Square. The woman, Alina, was kind but efficient, pulling dress after dress for Victoria to try. "Mr. Harrison mentioned you prefer elegance over flash," Alina said as she adjusted a deep blue gown on Victoria's shoulders. "This color brings out your eyes beautifully." Victoria stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was still her, but refined, polished, transformed. The dress hugged her curves without being inappropriate, and the color made her black hair shine like silk. James had also arranged for a hairstylist and makeup artist to visit Victoria's apartment on Saturday afternoon. As they worked, Victoria felt like she was watching someone else's life unfold. The shy assistant was disappearing, replaced by a woman who looked confident and sophisticated. The night everything changed Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth for San Francisco. Victoria stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. Her hair was styled in soft waves that framed her face perfectly. Her makeup was subtle but striking, emphasizing her natural beauty rather than hiding it. The blue dress fit like it had been made for her body alone. A knock at her door announced James's arrival. When Victoria opened it, she felt her breath catch. James wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that made his broad shoulders look even more impressive. His usually messy hair was styled neatly, and his gray eyes held an intensity that made her heart skip. "You look incredible," he said softly, his voice carrying a note of genuine surprise. "Thank you," Victoria replied, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "You clean up pretty well yourself." The ride to the Museum of Modern Art was filled with nervous energy. James briefed Victoria on the guest list, pointing out important people she should remember, and rivals she should be polite but cautious around. But as they talked, Victoria noticed something changing between them. The conversation felt natural, almost intimate, rather than the formal exchanges they usually shared at work. Dancing with Destiny, the museum was transformed for the gala. Soft lighting illuminated priceless artwork while elegant tables surrounded a dance floor in the main hall. Waiters in white jackets moved through the crowd carrying champagne and delicate appetizers. The guest list read like a who's who of Silicon Valley power players. Victoria felt overwhelmed for exactly 30 seconds. Then James placed his hand gently on the small of her back, and suddenly she felt anchored. His touch was warm and reassuring, reminding her that she wasn't alone in this glittering crowd. "Remember," he whispered close to her ear, "you belong here as much as anyone else." The first hour passed in a blur of introductions. Victoria was surprised to discover that her genuine curiosity about people served her well. Instead of trying to impress anyone, she simply listened and asked thoughtful questions. Tech executives found themselves charmed by her authenticity, and their wives appreciated her lack of pretense. "James, you've been holding out on us," said Robert Chen, founder of a major social media platform. "Victoria is delightful. Where have you been hiding her?" James smiled, his arms sliding around Victoria's waist in a gesture that felt surprisingly natural. "Some things are worth keeping private until you're ready to share them." Victoria felt a flutter in her stomach at his words. The way he looked at her when he said it made her wonder if he was still acting. As the evening progressed, Victoria noticed Natasha Blake watching them from across the room. The rival CEO was stunning in a red dress that commanded attention, but her expression was calculating rather than warm. Several times, Victoria caught Natasha speaking intently to small groups of people, her eyes constantly returning to where Victoria and James stood. "She's working the room," Victoria murmured to James during a quiet moment. "Let her," James replied. "The best response to rumors is truth." When the orchestra began playing, James turned to Victoria with an outstretched hand. "Dance with me?" Victoria's heart hammered as she took his hand. "I should warn you, I'm not exactly a ballroom dancer, neither am I," James admitted with a smile that transformed his usually serious face. "We'll figure it out together." On the dance floor, surrounded by couples who moved with practiced grace, Victoria and James found their own rhythm. He was a better dancer than he claimed, leading her gently through simple steps. But what struck Victoria most was how right it felt to be in his arms. "This is nice," she said without thinking, then blushed at her honesty. "It is," James agreed, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "I can't remember the last time I enjoyed one of these events." They swayed together as the music played. And Victoria became acutely aware of everything about James: the scent of his cologne, the strength in his arms, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Somewhere between the second and third song, the line between pretending and reality began to blur. The moment truth breaks through, it happened during a slow waltz. Victoria looked up to find James studying her face with an expression she couldn't quite read. The formal mask he usually wore had slipped away, replaced by something vulnerable and genuine. "Victoria," he said quietly, his voice barely audible above the music. "Yes, this doesn't feel like pretending anymore." Her breath caught. The honest admission hung between them, changing everything. Victoria felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. For 3 years, she had admired James from a distance, telling herself that her feelings were simply professional respect. But dancing in his arms, seeing the man behind the CEO facade, she could no longer deny the truth. "No," she whispered. "It doesn't." James's hand tightened slightly on her waist, and Victoria felt herself leaning closer. The crowded ballroom seemed to fade away until it was just the two of them, moving together to music that felt like it was playing just for them. "I need to tell you something," James said, his forehead almost touching hers. "This arrangement, asking you to come with me tonight, it wasn't just about business." Victoria's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I've been watching you for months," he admitted. "The way you handle everything, with such grace. The way you care about details no one else notices. The way you make everyone around you feel important. You're remarkable. I've been too much of a coward to tell you." The confession shattered every assumption Victoria had held about their relationship. She had thought herself invisible to him, a useful but forgettable employee. To learn that he had been seeing her, really seeing her, all this time was overwhelming. "James," she began, but he continued. "When I asked you to come tonight, part of me hoped that maybe, in pretending to care about each other, we might discover something real." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. The vulnerability in his voice, the hope mixed with fear, touched something deep inside her chest. "And have we?" she asked softly. Instead of answering with words, James cupped her face gently in his hands and kissed her. It was soft and tentative at first, a question more than a statement. But when Victoria melted into him, when her arms wound around his neck, the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home. When they broke apart, both were breathing unsteadily. The music had stopped, but they remained in each other's arms, unwilling to break the spell that had settled over them. "I think we have," James whispered against her forehead. Victoria smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. The pretend relationship had become something beautiful and real. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. But across the room, Natasha Blake had witnessed their intimate moment, and her smile was sharp with malicious satisfaction. The real test of their newfound love was about to begin. Victoria woke to the buzzing of her phone on Sunday morning. For a moment she smiled, remembering the kiss she had shared with James on the dance floor just hours before. But the persistent buzzing made her reach for the device, and her heart sank as she saw the screen filled with notifications. The first headline made her stomach drop. "Tech Billionaire's Fake Romance Exposed. Assistant paid to play girlfriend." The article featured a grainy photo of her and James kissing, taken from across the ballroom. The caption suggested their entire relationship was a calculated business move designed to manipulate public opinion. Victoria scrolled through message after message. Some were from colleagues expressing shock. Others were from reporters asking for comments. Her mother had texted from Sacramento. "Sweetheart, saw the news online. Are you okay?" The articles were brutal. They painted Victoria as a gold digger who had seduced her way into James's life for money and status. They suggested James was so desperate to counter Natasha Blake's rumors that he had hired his own assistant to play a role. Every genuine moment they had shared was twisted into calculated performance. Victoria felt tears burning her eyes as she read comment after comment from strangers who had never met her but felt qualified to judge her character. The woman who had felt beautiful and confident just hours before now felt exposed and humiliated. Standing in the storm together when Victoria arrived at the office on Monday morning, the atmosphere was electric with whispered conversations that stopped the moment she appeared. She walked to her desk with her head held high, but inside, she felt like she was crumbling. Several colleagues avoided eye contact, while others stared with curious expressions that made her skin crawl. James appeared at her desk within minutes of her arrival. His face was drawn with concern, and dark circles under his eyes suggested he had slept as poorly as she had. "Victoria, we need to talk," he said quietly. "My office." She followed him inside, acutely aware of the eyes watching their every move. James closed the door and immediately pulled down the blinds, giving them privacy from the curious gazes outside. "I'm so sorry," he said, turning to face her. "I never wanted you to be hurt by this. The things they're saying about you are lies, and I'm going to fix it." Victoria felt fresh tears threatening. "How can you fix it, James?" "They think I'm some kind of scheming woman who manipulated you. They think our feelings aren't real, because I'll tell them the truth," James said firmly. "I'll hold a press conference. I'll explain exactly how this started and how it developed into something genuine. I'll make them understand that what we have is real." Victoria shook her head. "That will only make it worse. They'll say you're just protecting me because you feel guilty, or they'll claim you're so infatuated that you can't see clearly." James moved closer, taking her hands in his. "Then what do you want to do?" "I won't let them destroy you because of my mistakes." Victoria looked into his gray eyes and saw the same vulnerability she had seen on the dance floor. He was offering to fight the entire world for her, and the knowledge warmed her heart, even as fear chilled her bones. "I need time to think," she said softly. "This is all happening so fast." James nodded, though disappointment flickered across his features. "Take all the time you need, but please don't make any permanent decisions while you're hurting. We can get through this together." The test of true love the next few days were the hardest of Victoria's life. She was followed by paparazzi on her way to work. Reporters called her apartment at all hours. Social media was filled with speculation about her motives and character. The stress was overwhelming. Victoria found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about love and happiness. Natasha Blake gave several interviews, each one more damaging than the last. She spoke with practiced sympathy about how Victoria had been used by James, while simultaneously suggesting that Victoria had orchestrated the entire situation for personal gain. It was masterfully manipulative, designed to make Victoria look like both a victim and a villain. The worst part was watching how the scandal affected James. Board members called emergency meetings. Several major investors expressed concerns about his judgment. The stock price of Harrison Innovations dropped as uncertainty swirled around the company's leadership. On Wednesday evening, Victoria sat in her apartment staring at her reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back seemed smaller than the one who had danced in James's arms just days before. She felt like she was disappearing again, retreating into the shadows where she had lived for so many years. Her phone rang, and James's name appeared on the screen. Victoria hesitated before answering. "How are you holding up?" His voice was gentle, concerned. "I'm not sure I am," Victoria admitted. "James, maybe they're right. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe what we felt was just the excitement of pretending to be something we're not." "Do you really believe that?" James asked quietly. Victoria closed her eyes, remembering the way her heart had raced when he kissed her. The way everything had felt right when she was in his arms. "No," she whispered. "But it doesn't matter what I believe if the whole world thinks we're lying. The whole world doesn't matter," James said firmly. "Only we matter. Only this matters. Your company is suffering because of me," Victoria said, tears flowing freely now. "Your reputation is being damaged. I can't be the reason you lose everything you've worked for. Victoria, listen to me," James's voice was urgent. "I built this company to create something meaningful, to connect people through technology. But you've shown me something more important than any algorithm or innovation. You've shown me what real connection feels like. If I have to choose between the company and you, I choose you. Every time, finding courage in love, the words hit Victoria like lightning. James Harrison, one of the most powerful men in Silicon Valley, was willing to risk everything for her. The magnitude of his love was both terrifying and inspiring. "I need to see you," she said suddenly. "Can you come over?" "I'm already in the car," James replied, and Victoria could hear the smile in his voice. 20 minutes later, James stood at her door, looking disheveled and tired, but more handsome than ever. Victoria threw herself into his arms, and he held her tightly, as if he could shield her from all the cruel words and cameras. "I love you," Victoria said against his chest. "I love you, and I'm tired of being afraid." James pulled back to look at her, his eyes bright with hope. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying let's fight this together," Victoria said, feeling strength return to her voice. "Let's tell our story our way. Let's show them that real love doesn't follow their rules or expectations." James cupped her face in his hands. The same gesture that had preceded their first kiss. "Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. We'll be in the spotlight forever." Victoria smiled, thinking of her parents who had risked everything for a better life. Thinking of the woman she had been becoming before fear tried to drag her backward. "I'm sure. I'd rather face the storm with you than hide in the shadows alone." Love's victory. The press conference was held the following Friday in the main conference room of Harrison Innovations. Victoria wore a simple but elegant navy dress, her hair pulled back in a professional style. She looked confident and poised, though her heart was racing. James stood beside her at the podium, his hand resting supportively on her back. He spoke first, explaining clearly and honestly how their relationship had begun as a business arrangement and evolved into genuine love. He took full responsibility for the original deception while defending Victoria's character with passionate conviction. Then it was Victoria's turn. She stepped forward, looking directly into the cameras that had made her life miserable for the past week. "My name is Victoria Chen," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I am not a gold digger. I am not a manipulator. I am a woman who worked hard to build a career, who fell in love unexpectedly, and who refuses to apologize for either of those things." She spoke about her parents, about her values, about the difference between a business arrangement and a real relationship. She was honest about her fears and honest about her feelings. When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment. The questions that followed were tough, but Victoria and James answered them together, supporting each other through every challenge. They were honest about their mistakes while standing firm in their love. A new beginning 6 months later. Victoria stood in the same museum where everything had changed, but this time she wasn't pretending to be anyone other than herself. She wore a simple white dress and carried a bouquet of white roses. James waited for her at the altar, his eyes bright with joy and love. The wedding was small and intimate, attended only by family and close friends. There were no reporters, no cameras, no one trying to twist their story into something it wasn't. It was just two people who had found each other against all odds, promising to love each other for the rest of their lives. Victoria's parents sat in the front row, tears of pride shining in their eyes. They had worried about their daughter's happiness for years. Now they could see that she had found not just love, but the courage to claim her place in the world. As James slipped the ring onto Victoria's finger, she thought about the scared assistant who had first walked into his office, convinced she was invisible and unworthy of love. That woman seemed like a stranger now. In her place stood someone who had learned that real love doesn't ask you to be perfect or to hide who you are. Real love sees you completely and chooses you anyway. When they kissed as husband and wife, Victoria felt the same electricity she had experienced on the dance floor months before. But now there was something more. The deep peace of knowing that whatever storms might come, they would face them together. Harrison Innovations thrived under James's continued leadership, stronger than ever because he had learned to lead with both his mind and his heart. Victoria took on a more prominent role in the company, using her natural talent for connecting with people to bridge the gap between technology and humanity. And on quiet Sunday mornings, when they sat together reading the newspaper over coffee, Victoria sometimes marveled at how a simple business arrangement had transformed into the greatest love story of her life. She had learned that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most unexpected places, and that love, when it's real and true and brave, can indeed conquer all storms. The fake relationship had become the most genuine thing in both their lives, proving that sometimes the heart knows the truth long before the mind catches up. In choosing to fight for their love, Victoria and James had found something worth more than any amount of money or success. They had found each other, and that was everything.